Hey YouTube, it's your girl Dr. J, and I'm coming at you again real quick to talk about diverse repetition again, and this time in the area of concepts and definitions and those sort of things. And what I wanted to do was show you guys why I tend to use a lot of different resources when it comes to defining terms for my kids, or really, especially when we start to explore concepts. So what I'm going to do is show you guys the various ways that you can get information on the scientific concept of matter. And this is just to show how you get such a different perspective when you use a lot of different resources. First one I'm going to show is the Kingfisher First Science Encyclopedia. And of course, this is for younger children. But it's not going to have the exact term matter, but you'll see things like on page 54 of the book. It talks about like liquids. Okay, so as it's talking about liquids, it talks about, it's not like a solid, how it's different from a gas. And that's really the beginning foundations of matter for children. So, because especially when my kids were a lot younger, we would hit something like this first. That's our first stop. That's not our only stop. Okay. The next thing we have is a book on physics. And this is a Kingfisher book. It is a Basher book. And it's written by Dan Green. But as you can see, it says why matter matters. And so this entire book is about matter, and everything, it's pretty much its own chapter. Like this one is on mass, and it's just a page with a picture, weight, density. It's going to explain those concepts behind mass in a way that's pretty simple for kids to get, but it's going to go into much more depth than we would see in the Kingfisher's First Encyclopedia. And then we go to the Illustrated Dictionary of Physics. And in this one, I marked the page where we first start talking about things like matter, and that's when they hit energy. Energy is generally going to be one of the first topics that you hit when you start to introduce concepts of matter to children. Another way, Times for Kids, the Super Science book. And in this book, it talks about the changing states. So you'll see a lot on solids, liquids, and gases. And this tends to be the most common way people introduce the concept of matter to young children is in the states of matter: solid, liquid, gas. And that's good. It's lots of good information. It has different experiments to do, but it's 2 pages. Okay, so again, it's going to introduce the concept, but it talks about the concept actually more closely associated to way the Kingfisher First Science book does it. Just solid, liquid, gas, but they don't use the term matter in this book, whereas in the Super Science book they do. And so when you're talking with young kids, you still want to use the term matter because it's going to come up a lot. But I wanted to show you differences in how this topic is tackled. So I have a Kingfisher Science Encyclopedia here, and when they discuss matter, they start with the states of matter, okay, and it goes into solids, liquids, gases, melting point. Then they go into solution, separation of solutions. They kind of jump to chemistry. So really, if you just looked up states of matter in this book, you get a couple pages talking about the boiling point and but even before and after, it's talking about chemical analysis. So you would think, okay, well, we're just going to hit matter real quickly. That's how this science encyclopedia deals with matter. It's a good encyclopedia, But with matter, it's like a couple pages that they separate it out in. Whereas with the Firefly Science Encyclopedia, again, this is a book for kids, so just a different brand of encyclopedia. When we look at matter, we find matter in this book, it's not 2 pages. There's a whole section. They talk about changes in matter, properties of matter, atomic structure in relation to matter, radioactivity, bonding, crystals, elements, the periodic table in terms of matter. Whether something is an alkaline metal or alkali metal, transition of metals, pore metals, semimetals, carbon, organic chemistry, nitrogen, phosphorus, all of that. So when they look at matter, matter is a major theme in this encyclopedia. And it links chemistry with matter, but it keeps matter as the major theme. Okay? Whereas this encyclopedia treated matter just as a smaller topic, and you would have to, for yourself, dig out all the connections in relation to matter. And this is really a prime example of why I like to have a lot of different resources that we check, whether it's getting our math and language arts in a lot of different ways, and even just something as simple as utilizing an encyclopedia. If I just look at it one way, if I just grab one book, if it's a fun book, if it's an interesting book, if it's a book for a small child, if it's a book that's dedicated to the subject and considers itself, to be an expert on the matter, or if it's just a fun subject-based book, they all have good information, and they all have some commonalities. The states of matter, that's going to be common in all of these resources. But if I just use one, I'm going to give a much more narrow focus on the topic rather than when I bring in a lot of different resources. Another thing that you'll find when you add in different resources is that you can start to check copyright dates to see if information has changed over time. You might have some resources that talk about Pluto as a planet, as opposed to Pluto being a dwarf planet. So it's really a good idea to, even if you don't buy a lot of resources, check them out from the library. Check garage sales and used book sales. You tend to be able to find different encyclopedias and different things that way. But I would say try to have on hand at least 2 different resources so that you can compare and contrast things together. It also is going to be good for teaching your children to always check more than one source for information. It's just an amazing skill to develop early, and it will serve them throughout their life if you do that. If you let them know that no one person, no one book has all the answers when it comes to a topic. They want to make sure that they're looking in a lot of different areas, in a lot of different places, and don't get caught up in, this is, the children's, science encyclopedia. I just need this. This covers matter much more thoroughly than the Kingfisher, but Kingfisher covers some other topics much more thoroughly than this book. And so it's, I also like to have books available. I mean, internet is great. Of course, I'm a YouTube fanatic, so of course I think technology is great, but there's just something about taking out the books and flipping through the pages for yourself and seeing information for yourself that's also good as well. So we try to have that balance. It's been serving us really well. It's a life skill that I see, my students in the college classroom that have these skills tend to have a much easier time with things than the ones who are just trying to learn this skill when they get to college, because they have been taught that one source is enough for a lot of their work, or one definition is right, or this is one, go-to way. So just wanted to share that with you guys. Hopefully it's helpful to some people, but that is how, even with very young children, my kids are 5 and 7, so even with really young children, you can start to introduce the concept of having a diversity of sources, checking what other people say against other pieces of information, and finding and digging and searching for truth for yourselves. Hope this helps. This is Dr. J, and I'm out. Bye-bye.